My family has houses both in Mexico and Texas, so I alternate between the USA and Mexico very frequently. On normal weeks, I just cross the border from Mexico to Texas to go to school, and then I come back to Mexico. I spend most of my time in Mexico, so naturally, I'm quite used to the cartel presence. I'm used to calling off nights out with friends due to cartel-related shootings and stuff like that. It just no longer surprises me. It wasn't until recently that I had an actual face-to-face encounter with the cartel. My ex-girlfriend lives in Mexico, in a gated neighborhood on the wealthier side of the city. Naturally, I used to frequent her house when we were still together. One night, her parents left her and her little brother alone until the next day, so she invited me over, and we got pretty hammered. Around 2 a.m. we went out for a walk because we wanted to smoke some weed. Weed from Texas. We sat at the bleachers of a basketball court within our neighborhood that was behind a very, very beautiful house, with expensive cars parked outside. I asked her, "What do they do?" To which she replied, "Cartel." I thought she was joking until she told me how the Mexican army had their whole neighborhood on lockdown because of them back in 2014. My smile faded pretty fast. I got kind of mad and worried, and I asked her, "What the fuck are we doing behind a cartel safe house at 2 a.m. smoking foreign weed?" This all happened quickly, and after 5 minutes of being there, a tall white pickup truck parked in front of the court. I immediately knew this wasn't good news and kept telling her we should leave. She told me to calm down, that it was probably just some kids making out in a truck. That seemed reasonable to me, but I started panicking after the truck just stayed there for like 5 minutes without turning off the engine, and as soon as we got up to leave, it took off. As we made our way to the other street, the huge weight that was lifted from my shoulders fell right back twice as heavy when the truck intercepted us at the very corner of the street. She ran into a house that was still in construction, and she tried to pull me with her, but I didn't budge because something I've learned from my dad, being a cop, is you never run if you have nothing to hide. She had the weed and I didn't, so I just stood there for a bit until the window of the driver's side went down, and a man signaled me to get closer, and I did. As I walked up, the first thing I saw was both of the men in there were armed, and this made my stomach drop. The passenger looked completely out of mind. Like, he genuinely looked unhinged. His pupils were fucking huge, and he was clearly tripping on something. On the other hand, the driver looked like a pretty normal guy. I dare to say he was so normal, it was comforting. He asked me. This whole conversation was in Spanish, of course. What we were doing. I said smoking, and he asked, "Smoking what?" I just said normal cigarettes. He turned to look at his partner and back at me, and there was a long pause before I said, "I don't know who you were looking for, but it's definitely not us. I'm not even from here." He asked me if I was American, to which I nodded, and then he said, "Show me." Fortunately, I always carry my passport with me since I cross the border so often. He asked me about my girlfriend. I said she was American too. She's not. And he told me to go get her. I told him that I'd rather not, because if they found weed on her that wasn't theirs, she would be fucked. Fortunately, the guy didn't insist, and after going through my phone, he told me he didn't want to see us out this late, behind that house ever again. They took off, and I turned back to her. She was peeking from behind a pile of cement bags. I signaled to her that we were leaving, and we ran back to the house. When we got to her front yard, I asked her to give me the weed so I could get rid of it, and she told me she hid it under the floorboards of the house. So we ran back to get it, because if they found it there, we would still be fucked. The 2 minutes it took for us to run back to her house were easily the scariest moments of my life. What still makes my stomach turn to this day is the look the other guy had on his face. I'm telling you, he literally looked absolutely unhinged. He did not say a single thing, but he was staring me down the whole time, with his hand around the grip of his rifle. I felt like he was just itching for me to say the wrong thing, so he could blow my brains out right then and there.
Life is truly filled with horror stories. These traumatic events leave many people with severe and life-altering injuries, but even after the trauma, the struggle isn't over. Have you ever thought about what you would do after you got injured? If you had medical bills to pay but no ability to work? How would you know that your insurance companies or the people responsible for your injuries are being fair to you? Then, trying to navigate the situation with traditional law firms can be a daunting, confusing ordeal that brings even more pain. The piles of paperwork, the hours of your valuable time used up, and the expensive fees hitting you while you're already down. With Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm, that won't be a problem. When you're seriously hurt, your injury could be worth millions. Morgan & Morgan don't accept lowball settlements from insurance companies. In recent months, they've achieved massive victories for victims of serious car crashes. In Florida, they achieved a verdict for $12 million, which was 34 times greater than the highest insurance offer. In Philadelphia, they achieved a verdict for a $26 million payout, 40 times more than the highest settlement offered by the insurance company. Morgan & Morgan will fight for you to get the best outcome if you become their client. If you hire Morgan & Morgan, you won't just be assigned a single lawyer, but an entire dedicated legal team with lawyers, case investigators, paralegals, and customer care specialists, all working to maximize your settlement. On top of that, there are thousands of support staff available at all hours to help you with any questions or concerns about your case, making the experience as painless as possible. The best part is, you don't pay them a penny unless you win your case. And Morgan & Morgan didn't become the largest injury law firm for no reason. It's because they win a lot. Even better, they've modernized the injury law process, so it only takes minutes to see if you have a case, and you can submit your claim on your phone. If you ever get seriously injured, your case could be worth millions, and you're only a few clicks away from potentially changing your life. It's easy. You can start your claim with Morgan & Morgan at www.forthepeople.com/MJV, found in the description below, or by scanning the QR code on screen with your phone's camera. You can type in your name, phone number, zip code, and email address, select the type of your claim, then describe what happened. Click or tap Start Your Claim and you're done. Remember, Morgan & Morgan is the largest injury law firm in the United States, so they have all the resources and know-how to see your case through. There's no company too big for Morgan & Morgan to fight, and they'll fight for you to get the settlement you deserve if you become their client.
This happened 5 years ago, when I, 20 female, was 15. My great-aunt's health at the time was failing, and she could no longer care for herself, so my family decided that she was better off at a nursing home, due to her being an extreme hoarder. I don't want to shit on my family in any way, but this is important for the story. Her house sat abandoned. My father and I were the only ones that checked up on the house from time to time. It started off small when we noted minor stuff being moved around or drawers being looked through. Around that time, we didn't think much of it, since another person close to my great aunt also had a key to the house. We thought maybe he wanted to get some of his stuff, since he used to live with her for some time. After a while, probably a month later, things got stranger. We used to roam the house more to rescue some things in it and just look through everything. Maybe after a week of doing so and feeling watched every time we were there, more stuff would be moved around and misplaced, so we would notice it immediately. Like stuffed animals that used to sit on a shelf, now neatly sitting above one another on the staircase step by step. Dirty footprints and more drawers ripped open and the stuff inside spilled everywhere. We got very suspicious of the situation and investigated more. We had late night drives passing the house just to check if we ever caught a flashlight or any sign of someone being inside the house every night. At that time, I started telling my friends about the situation, and as the stupid kids we were back then, we thought it would be a good adventure for us to just stay there for a night and play security with the mission to finally catch this person that seemed almost like a ghost to us. Another piece of information that's important is that there was actually no way inside the house. No window open, all the doors locked, and we and this other guy were the only ones with the key. Anyways, back to the day we stayed there. I and 3 of my friends just settled into the kitchen, not noticing anything out of the ordinary yet, except for the normal stuff that had been going on. So we assumed that they weren't around yet. We ordered pizza and we just talked for a while, just waiting for something to happen. After a while, we decided that we would go for a walk with my 2 dogs that I had with me. I made sure to definitely close and lock the door behind me. When we returned after 15 minutes, a single lamp in the last corner of the living room was turned on. Keep in mind, the whole living room was filled with trash, so they had to climb over everything to just turn this lamp on. That's when we knew the person had to be in the house now. We decided to go into the kitchen and keep a low profile, just to see what would happen. After a while, one of my friends, let's call her Jane, chickened out and wanted to go home, so we let her. Just 5 minutes after Jane closed the front door behind her, we heard someone walking down the wooden stairs, obviously thinking we all left the house. We were so caught up listening to the creaking of the steps that we only realized what was actually happening when one of my dogs started barking and the footsteps immediately stopped. There was only one wall separating us from whoever just came walking down the stairs, and when we finally realized that, we all got so scared and ran out of the house as fast as possible. There was a door separating the staircase from the hallway that we luckily locked as soon as we came back from the walk, so we probably locked them up there. When we finally all sat outside the house, we just decided that it's probably best if we just called the police and let them handle the situation. As we waited, basically all holding our breaths in the aftershock of the situation, we suddenly heard someone, a male voice, talking quietly, probably on the phone. That's when we noticed that a window was slightly open on the second story of the house. He must have opened it at one point because, like I said, no windows were ever open. We couldn't really make anything out that was being said, only something along the lines of, "Been caught." After 30 long minutes of sitting there, the police finally arrived and went inside. They looked through everything but found nothing. He for sure had enough time to simply hide somewhere. There was a room completely filled with cardboard boxes that reached under the roof. That's when things got extreme. It was like he was playing mind games with us. He left notes everywhere in the house for us to find, with weird drawn smiley faces and flowers saying, "Catch me." Placing this alarm thing underneath the front door that would go off anytime someone entered, letting him know that someone was there. Trashing the bedroom so it was beyond recognition, destroying furniture, shitting into the toilet, and placing a flower on top of the shit. And all of this without ever being caught once. Our checkups became more frequent, turning from once a day to every hour, but nothing. We eventually decided to let things cool down a little and ignored the problem for a while. At some point, he would surely leave a basically unlivable house, drowning in cat pee and trash, right? Nope, wrong. Probably 4 months after we didn't put much interest into him or the house, one of my friends saw some figures standing at the window behind the curtain, just staring outside. And we were just like, great, here we go again. And suddenly the interest was back. One day, we all decided to turn up at the house. There were 7 of us, and we were just ready to search that damn house from head to toe. Just finding the place that the guy was hiding at and where he was leaving and entering the house. Still, everything was locked. When we first got back inside, there was leftover and rotten food in the kitchen, and a surprise for us in the living room, where he shit on a cardboard box, just like a fucking dog. We decided to separate. 4 of us went inside the living area. One of my friends stayed outside, and a friend, let's call him Carl, and I went into the stable area of the house, because that part had a hole in the wall that connected the place the hay was kept to the attic, but we were never able to figure out exactly where that hole in the attic was. Carl was throwing little stones at the hole that seemed to be covered with something, like cardboard from the other side, just so our friends would be able to hear the sound from inside to find the entrance. All of a sudden, it knocked back. We actually saw the cardboard bending from someone hitting on it, and I yelled down to my friend outside if they were finally able to find that damn entrance, and all I got back from her was, "No, everyone is downstairs." Just kind of shocked, Carl and I quickly made our way out of the stable, and to the others, saying if we go to the attic now, we got him, since there would be no way he could escape that quickly, and he would have had to pass us on the stairs. We all ran upstairs, but again, nothing. Just nothing at all. After this, we just decided that we would give up and not go there again. We also realized that it might be too dangerous. He never seriously did anything to us, except for creeping us out, but we were wondering what he would do if we seriously caught him and stood in front of him. Our parents were also not really happy with us doing any of this, so again, months passed without anything. Only sometimes driving by and seeing a faint light inside, until the house was finally put back on the market to be sold. Today, it has been completely emptied out and is now being renovated. It's early November, cold, rainy, and around midnight. My fiancé and I like to take spontaneous late-night drives. We typically start out on one of the main roads within our city and keep following it until we hit the next town. Sometimes our drives last for hours. The layout of my county and surrounding counties is a little bizarre. All of the cities and towns are isolated by large spreads of woods and country. I live in a relatively large college town, but a half-hour drive in one direction can land you stranded in a jagged, unmarked gravel road in the middle of nowhere, or in small weird villages that no one really knows about. It's actually pretty exciting, and that's why we do it so much. So it's around midnight. We're nearly lost. Willa, my fiancée, is poking around on my phone, trying to figure out what road we're on. We're on a mud path in a part of the country framed by small towns that we've never heard of. There are no other cars on the roads. It's rainy and misty, and the headlights on my car aren't doing a damn thing. There are strands of trees and brush on either side of the road. We're heading north. She tells me that she thinks we're going to cross 200 Street West, which runs into Rye Road, which is a straight shot to an area that we kind of know. We make our way down the mud road for about a half hour and we never hit it. We've always had fun on these sorts of drives. It's the first time we've ever really been on edge. Willa says we should have found 200 Street West already and asks me if she thinks that we passed it without noticing. I ask nervously if we should turn around, but she doesn't think we can without backing up into a tree or a ditch. I'm driving a Mazda and it has an awfully wide turn. She's biting her nails while scrolling around on Google Maps. 10 minutes pass and we finally see a little black road snaking up a hill, branching off of the road we're on. I hurriedly turned onto it. It's very narrow and twigs and branches are raking the doors and windows of the car. When we complete the climb up the little road, we find ourselves in a wide paved clearing with a house at the back of it, tucked into the thick woods. Willa doesn't miss a beat and starts hissing for me to turn around. Our headlights illuminate the whole property, which is in major disrepair. No lights, windows shattered, siding and shingles shredded. The yard is littered with scraps and trash. Barrels, car parts, tools, and hundreds of glass bottles. Branches, slabs of concrete, and rocks. And there was a nasty old Chevy pickup. It looks like the house is sitting on top of it all. Every inch of the property is entangled in nets of ivy and weeds. Willa points out little moving shadows and glowing spots around the yard. There are dozens of cats around and they're all looking at us with their eyes glimmering from the headlights. I almost pissed myself when a walnut-sized rock darts out of the bush and pops against the windshield. It completely fractures the glass. Willa screams and grabs my arm and she's whimpering, Denny, what the hell was that? What was that? Oh my god, what just happened? The rain is pouring in black streams down the trees, over the house and across the pavement. All of the blood runs from my face. After a few seconds, a man stumbles out from the bushes and weeds and he's carrying a shovel. He's swallowed in a big, dirty navy coat and he has a beard. Then a screen door at the house opens and all the cats scatter. A tall, thin, spidery-looking woman crawls out onto the porch. She has long, wild gray hair. She's just up high enough on the porch that the headlights don't reach her eyes. She wipes her unusually dark hands on her skirt. I have no clue what was on her hands, but that's what I remember most about her. Just how dark her hands were. She stares at us. Willa is screaming and crying and slapping the door lock repeatedly. I throw the car into reverse, rolling over cinder blocks and branches, and then screech back down the road. After Willa stops crying and there's some distance between us and the house, I started to relax. Yet when we finally get out of the woods and hit a long, straight stretch of road, I notice headlights behind us. I get a stomachache when I notice the cars mimicking all of our turns onto different roads. After nearly half an hour of being pursued, we finally reach a gas station being visited by a few other people. I watch the vehicle pass, and it's the same nasty Chevy truck that we saw at the house. They stalked us all the way to the next town. We wait till we see the truck disappear down the road before we get out, get some food, and ask for directions. On our way home, I looked at the rear view mirror more than I do at the road ahead. When we got back early in the morning, my teeth don't stop chattering until I fall asleep. Context. I grew up my entire childhood without a father. When I turned 15, I got really into hunting and I just enjoyed guns in general. My uncle is an avid hunter, gun builder, and ammunition reloader, and he really loves to hunt. This was a common interest that made us become very close. He was a father figure, and he taught me a lot that made me the man I am today. So now to the story. My uncle's father lives in Montana, which allowed us to get resident pricing on big game hunting tags. Once a year, we would head up to his property and hunt for a week. Usually this would go seamlessly, and if we were lucky, we would get the shot we were looking for. Unfortunately, not this year. Just like every year, we headed up to his father's property in northern Montana. That night we headed out to go set up some hunting cameras so that we knew that there were deer in the area, so we would know if it was a good place to hunt or not. It must have been 1 a.m. and we were driving down this 2-lane dirt road, headed into the woods. We were always the only people on the road since it was usually so early in the morning. This particular time we saw headlights approaching from behind us but thought nothing of it. We figured that they must have been doing the same thing as us. After tailing us for some time, the headlights disappeared, which was strange since there were no turns on this particular road. A few seconds go by and all of a sudden we see the truck driving on the shoulder to our right with the lights off. The shoulder was a small hill with brush and a fence fairly close to it. Definitely something that nobody should be driving on. The truck speeds up and gets back on the road, turns its lights back on, and speeds off into the darkness. This set off some red flags for us, but we figured they were just impatient and wanted to get there before us. No big deal, I guess, or so we thought. We drove down the road for a few more miles until we saw taillights stopped in the middle of the road. It was the truck that passed us a few miles back. They had set up traffic cones to completely block off the road, and there was another truck parked on the shoulder. We figured that they must have broken down, so we stopped. I had read an article online earlier this year about people in other countries that would make roadblocks to rob and kill people for their vehicles and belongings. I laughed and started to tell my uncle about this article when 2 men from each truck jumped out of their vehicles and started to approach us. My uncle always kept 2 handguns on shoulder holsters under his arms when we were out doing these kinds of things, and this probably saved our lives. 2 of the men stayed at the tailgate of the truck parked on the road, and the other 2 men came up to his window. At this point, my uncle had his right hand in his jacket with his hand holding his gun. The men were extremely friendly at first and said that the truck on the shoulder had broken down and that they were just helping him out. They asked if my uncle knew anything about cars and if he could come take a look at the problem. My uncle refused, and this made the men angry right away. They both instantly drew pistols, and one of the men rounded the front of the truck towards my window. My uncle then grabbed the man's gun that was pointed at him, which he forgot to load a round into, luckily for us. My uncle pulled his gun out and shot the man on the shoulder and slammed on the gas, driving on the left shoulder, passing all of the men. I looked back and I could see the other 3 men gathering around the man my uncle shot. We drove and drove and drove, for what seemed like an eternity, without saying a word to each other. We drove back to his dad's house and he told me to go to bed. He called the police and told them what happened. They sent out 2 officers to the house to take his statement and mentioned to him that they had quite a few reports of roadblocks being set up all around northern Montana. They were actually able to catch all 4 of the men who stopped us that night, and they took the man who was shot to the hospital.